A world map of ancient stones reveals a hidden design. Pyramids, temples, and standing circles, separated by thousands of miles, align with a precision that seems impossible. This is the captivating theory of megalithic mapping, the study of a potential global geometry woven into our planet by forgotten hands. We will journey from the Giza Plateau to Stonehenge, from Angkor Wat to the Nazca Lines, investigating a lost science of Earth measurement. By the end, you will see the ancient world through an entirely new lens, one that could reshape your understanding of human history. How could cultures with no contact build according to the same hidden blueprint? What profound knowledge might be encoded in the very placement of these stones? What does this vast, silent pattern waiting beneath our feet say about the true story of our past? The sheer scale of this idea can feel overwhelming at first. To truly grasp it, we need to break down its two core components. First is megalithic mapping itself. This is not about a single pyramid or one stone circle in isolation. It is the meticulous study of the potential relationships between these sites, searching for patterns in their placement across continents. Researchers in this field measure the distances between monuments, chart their alignments to celestial events like solstices and equinoxes, and analyze the geometric shapes that might connect them on a map. It is an attempt to read the Earth itself as a kind of manuscript, written not in words, but in stone, and Chinese letter. The second, more profound component is the concept of a global geometry. This suggests that the pattern is not local or coincidental, but intentional and planetary. Imagine taking a string and stretching it from the Great Pyramid to Stonehenge, then to the ancient temples of Angkor Wat, and onward to the mysterious Moai statues of Easter Island. Proponents of this theory argue these lines would not be random. They might form perfect triangles, circles, or even more complex sacred shapes, like a vast, invisible net cast across the globe. This implies a shared blueprint, a master plan that transcends any one culture or era. This moves us firmly out of traditional archaeology and into the interdisciplinary realms of archaeoastronomy, which studies how ancient peoples understood the skies and alternative history. The staggering implication is that the builders of these wonders, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Cambodia, possessed or inherited a common system of geodetic knowledge. Geodesy is the science of accurately measuring and understanding the Earth's geometric shape, its orientation in space, and its gravity field. To suggest that prehistoric cultures had such a capability rewrites the entire narrative of human technological progress. It presents us with two monumental possibilities, each more fascinating than the last. The first is the existence of a prehistoric global civilization, a sophisticated network of people who traversed the world long before our history books say was possible, leaving a unified signature upon the landscape. The second possibility is perhaps even more intriguing, a widely disseminated sacred science. This could have been a body of knowledge concerning the spiritual energy of the earth, the mathematics of creation, or the pathways of the gods, taught and preserved by priestly orders across different cultures who, though separated, were applying the same universal principles. This foundational theory is the lens through which we will now examine the evidence. It invites us to ask not just how a single monument was built, but why it was built precisely there. What secret does its location hold within a grander, hidden design? The stones are waiting to tell their story, and it begins with seeing the connections between them. The precision of the Great Pyramid of Giza offers our first tangible clue. Its base is oriented to the cardinal points with an error of less than 1/15 of a single degree, an accuracy that rivals modern engineering. This is not merely impressive craftsmanship, it is a statement of profound geodetic knowledge, a fixed point of reference on the Earth's surface. But what if this point was not chosen in isolation? This single fact becomes the cornerstone for a much larger argument when we begin drawing lines across the map. Researchers have long noted that the Great Pyramid appears to form a key vertex in a planetary scale geometry. When you trace a great circle path, the shortest route over the globe from Giza to the ancient Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the alignment is remarkably clean. Extend that line further, and it passes through the historical center of the city of Ur in Mesopotamia, a cradle of early civilization. Another significant great circle arc can be drawn from Giza directly to the Salisbury Plain in England, landing with intriguing proximity to the Stonehenge complex. These are not random dots on a map. They are some of the most culturally and spiritually significant locations from the ancient world. The suggestion that they might be intentionally positioned along these perfect curves is what transforms a curious observation into a testable hypothesis. This implies the builders possessed more than just an ability to orient a single building north. They understood the Earth as a sphere and could calculate the shortest distances between points upon it, a branch of mathematics known as spherical trigonometry. Modern civilization did not formalize this mathematics until relatively recently in our long history. So how could architects from thousands of years ago potentially apply it? This is the compelling puzzle presented by the alignment evidence. It moves the discussion beyond wondering if a pattern exists and into the realm of measuring its precision. Each of these lines, these proposed great circle arcs, becomes a question written across continents. Were they sacred pathways, markers of a forgotten world grid, or perhaps something else entirely? To find out, we must look closer at the specific shapes these connections seem to form. These precise alignments between distant monuments hint at a larger, more intricate system. To understand it, we must explore the concept of an Earth grid. This theory proposes our planet is woven with a network of geometric lines, a kind of invisible architecture connecting places of deep cultural and spiritual significance. It builds upon a much older and simpler idea, that of ley lines. In the 1920s, an Englishman named Alfred Watkins was surveying the countryside when he had a remarkable insight. He noticed that ancient mounds, old churches built on pagan sites, standing stones, and hilltop forts often fell into startlingly straight alignments across the landscape. He called these alignments ley lines, suggesting they were old straight tracks, perhaps ancient trade or pilgrimage routes, marked by these prominent features. Watkins saw them as a practical human creation, a way to navigate the land. But later researchers took this local observation and expanded it to a planetary scale. What if these straight alignments were not just British footpaths but segments of a vast global pattern? This shifts the entire perspective. Instead of seeing Stonehenge or the Great Pyramid as isolated wonders, they become nodes, intersection points in a worldwide web. When researchers like Ivan T. Sanderson and Bruce Cathy began connecting major sacred sites on a globe, they reported finding consistent geometric shapes. Triangles, pentagons, and even complex icosahedrons seemed to form, with vertices anchored at places like Giza, Easter Island, and the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro. Bruce Cathy, in particular, framed this not just as geometry, but as an active energy grid. He proposed that these lines corresponded with natural Earth energies and that ancient cultures built their monuments at specific points to interact with, harness, or honor this flowing force. This transforms the map from a static record into a potentially dynamic matrix. The theory suggests these sites were not randomly placed for convenience, but deliberately positioned at points of confluence within this planetary system. Whether one views it as a map of spiritual pathways, a network of telluric energy, or a geometric blueprint of sacred cosmology, the implication is profound. It posits that our ancestors across all continents, were participating in a shared understanding of the Earth as a living, patterned entity. They may have been tuning the planet, much like one would tune a musical instrument by placing massive stones at precise harmonic points. This idea of a global grid moves us beyond mere alignment and into the realm of interaction. It asks us to consider not just where the stones are, but what might be flowing between them. The geometry of these sites is not only written in their alignments, but in their very dimensions. This leads us to a third, and perhaps most compelling, line of evidence: the suggestion that ancient builders encoded fundamental mathematical constants directly into stone. These are not simple numbers, but the universal ratios that describe the shapes of galaxies, the growth of plants, and the harmony of music. Their potential presence in prehistoric monuments hints at a knowledge system of breathtaking depth. The most famous example rests with the Great Pyramid. Its original perimeter, measured in ancient Egyptian units, divided by twice its height, yields a figure incredibly close to pi, the mathematical constant that defines the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. This is not a rough estimate, but a precise architectural expression. Similarly, the proportions within the pyramid's design, the relationship between its faces and its base, appear to incorporate the golden ratio known as phi. This irrational number, approximately 1.618, is found throughout nature in spiraling shells and branching trees, and is celebrated for its inherent aesthetic harmony. Finding it engineered into a 4,500-year-old structure is astonishing. But what if this encoding was not confined to a single building? Some researchers propose this mathematical language extends across the entire proposed network. They analyze the distances between major megalithic sites, from Stonehenge to Giza to Karnak in France. Intriguingly, these vast separations often appear to be neat multiples of a specific ancient unit of measurement, known as the megalithic yard, a length of about 2.72 modern feet. Even more strikingly, the distances between sites sometimes seem to reflect precise multiples or geometric functions of pi or phi. This transforms the global map from a collection of points into a potential equation, a three-dimensional calculation frozen in geography. The implications are profound. It suggests the builders were not merely stacking rocks according to tradition, but were engaged in a planet-scale act of mathematical and geodetic engineering. They appear to have understood spherical geometry, fundamental constants, and standardized units of measurement, and then applied this knowledge across continents. Conventional history teaches that such sophisticated mathematics developed much later, in classical Greece or the Islamic Golden Age. Its apparent presence millennia earlier presents a genuine enigma. It forces us to ask, where did this knowledge come from? Was it the hard-won discovery of a lost, advanced civilization? Or does it point to a different kind of understanding altogether? Perhaps one rooted in a sacred science that viewed number and geometry as the living language of creation, a code to be written upon the earth itself. This mathematical layer adds a new dimension of intentionality to the global pattern. It suggests the sites were not just connected by lines, but by a shared, precise formula. The presence of this mathematical code forces a difficult question. If such a global pattern exists, how could anyone have possibly laid it out across the world? We picture ancient peoples with simple tools, yet we are asked to believe they mapped continents with the precision of modern satellites. This apparent impossibility is the greatest source of skepticism, and it demands a serious look at what they truly knew. Dismissing the theory outright is easy, but examining the tools they actually possessed reveals a different story. Their greatest instrument was not made of metal, but of light. They had the night sky, a perfect, predictable clockwork of stars and planets, moving in cycles they tracked for generations. By observing the sun's path, marking the solstices and equinoxes, they could establish true north, south, east, and west with incredible accuracy. A simple pole in the ground, known as a gnomon, could cast a shadow that told time, season, and direction. In Egypt, they used an instrument called a merkit, a forked sighting tool aligned with the pole star, to trace straight lines across the desert for temple foundations. The Romans later used the groma, a cross of wood with weighted plumb lines, for surveying their vast road networks and city plans in perfectly straight, right-angled grids. These are not complex machines, but they are profoundly effective when wielded by a mind that understands geometry. With patience, careful observation, and a long cord for measuring, one can achieve remarkable precision. The real question is not about the simplicity of the tools, but the sophistication of the knowledge guiding them. Could this knowledge have been far more advanced than we assume? We must consider the possibility of lost technologies, not necessarily of gears and engines, but of understanding. Ancient cultures, from the Polynesian navigators to the builders of the Nazca lines, demonstrate a breathtaking mastery of their environment through observation alone. Polynesians crossed thousands of miles of open ocean using star paths, wave patterns, and the flight of birds, a mental map of the Pacific held in memory and song. This was a sacred science passed down through strict oral traditions and initiation, a living library of geospatial knowledge. What if a similar but even more comprehensive tradition once existed? A global priesthood or a network of astronomer priests who shared a common system for measuring the Earth, perhaps using the consistent length of a pendulum swing at a certain latitude to create a standard unit, like the proposed megalithic yard. This knowledge, guarded and transmitted through secret societies or mystery schools, could have been applied locally by different cultures, all following the same underlying blueprint without needing to communicate directly across oceans. They would not have needed satellites, only a shared sacred geometry and the unwavering belief that certain points on the Earth held special power, points that could be found through celestial alignment and careful measurement over generations. This view does not require a single global civilization with airplanes, but rather a disseminated science of place, a universal religion of the earth and sky. It argues that human ingenuity, when focused for centuries on a single spiritual and scientific goal, is capable of feats that our modern, impatient minds struggle to comprehend. The stones themselves are the proof of that patience. With this perspective, the global grid shifts from an impossible engineering project to a potential act of collective, sacred world building. To see how this might have worked, we need to step away from the abstract lines on a map and visit the specific cultures who left their signature on the land. The rolling green hills of the British Isles hold a secret written in stone. This landscape is one of the world's most concentrated canvases for megalithic art, a perfect place to test the idea of a sacred geometry on a manageable scale. At its heart stands Stonehenge, a monument whose primary alignment to the midsummer sunrise is famous. But this is just the opening sentence of a much longer story. Look beyond the central circle. The entire Salisbury Plain is a carefully composed sacred landscape. A short distance to the north lies the colossal henge of Avebury, a massive stone circle enclosing an entire village, connected to Stonehenge by a processional avenue known as the West Kennet Avenue. Further still rises the enigmatic Silbury Hill, the largest artificial mound in prehistoric Europe, its purpose still a profound mystery. And on the horizon, the distinctive conical shape of Glastonbury Tor stands like a natural cathedral. Researchers plotting these sites on a map have noticed something intriguing. They do not appear to be scattered randomly. Instead, they seem to form precise geometric relationships with one another, creating triangles and alignments across dozens of miles. These patterns are not just abstract lines, they are often anchored to celestial events. Certain ley lines proposed in the region align with the extreme rising and setting points of the Moon over its 18.6-year cycle, a sophisticated astronomical observation encoded into the very placement of the land. This suggests the builders of these sites saw the landscape itself as a living temple, with each hill, stone, and mound serving as an architectural feature in a vast, open-air cathedral designed in harmony with the cosmos. This local network becomes even more compelling when we pull back to a global view. The position of Stonehenge on the planet may be part of a far grander design. One of the most discussed alignments in megalithic mapping theory is the Great Circle arc connecting the Great Pyramid of Giza to the Stonehenge complex. The distance between these two icons of the ancient world is not arbitrary. Proponents point out that the line passes through other significant ancient points, and that the angular relationship between the sites reflects meaningful geometric and mathematical constants. If true, this would mean the architects of Stonehenge were not only designing a local calendar in tune with the sun and moon, but were also consciously placing their monument as a specific node in a planetary-wide system. It transforms Stonehenge from a regional wonder into a potential geodetic marker, a point of reference in a lost global science. This case study beautifully illustrates the theory's layered nature. At the microscale, we see a sacred geometry of the land, where communities shaped their immediate environment into a reflection of the heavens. At the macro scale, that same location might be a carefully chosen coordinate in a global matrix. It suggests a hierarchy of understanding where local power places were intentionally situated within a universal pattern, like individual notes placed within a grand celestial symphony. This pattern was not unique to the misty hills of Britain. To see its full scope, we must journey to another continent, to a civilization that carved its geometry not from standing stones, but from the living rock of the desert. Egypt offers a far richer geometric puzzle than a single pyramid complex. Giza is the undeniable anchor, a fixed point of celestial and terrestrial knowledge. But to see the full picture, we must widen our view across the Nile's western bank. A line drawn southeast from the Great Pyramid does not simply point into empty desert. It passes directly through the pyramid fields of Abu Sur and continues to the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, home to the step pyramid of Djoser, one of the very first monumental stone structures in Egypt. These three major sites form a distinct, deliberate diagonal across the landscape. This is not likely a coincidence of convenient bedrock. It suggests a master plan, a phased construction project over centuries where each new royal burial ground was intentionally placed according to a pre-existing alignment, maintaining a sacred geometric relationship with its predecessors. This local network hints at a profound understanding of their own territory as a structured, ceremonial space, but the geometry extends from the tombs of the dead to the temples of the living. Far to the south, in what was once Thebes, stand the colossal temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor. Their orientations are meticulously precise, but not always to true north. Certain axes within Karnak align with the rising of specific stars sacred to the gods worshipped within, turning stone corridors into astronomical sightlines. The temples themselves are positioned in relation to the Nile, the life-giving artery of Egypt. Some researchers propose the river's course was not just a practical concern, but an integral component of the geodetic scheme. Could the Nile's bend near Thebes or its annual flood cycle have been part of the sacred measurement? This idea transforms the entire landscape from a passive backdrop into an active participant in the geometry. Perhaps the most intriguing Egyptian node lies beneath modern Cairo. The ancient city of Heliopolis, the center of sun worship, was once home to a great temple and a sacred Benben stone. Its location, though now obscured, is proposed by some to be a key solar point within the global grid. Theorists draw connections from Heliopolis to other major solar sites across the world, from Teotihuacan in Mexico to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, suggesting a network of places dedicated to the same celestial principle. This deep dive reveals a crucial insight. The Egyptian evidence shows the geometry was not merely about connecting distant dots on a map. It was about embedding sacred principles directly into the lived environment. The diagonal of the pyramids, the stellar alignments of Karnak, the relationship to the Nile, all speak of a civilization that saw its entire domain as a temple to be designed according to cosmic rules. They were not just building monuments, they were sculpting a nation-sized model of their cosmology, where every element from a pharaoh's tomb to the flow of the river held its place in a divine order. This concept of a landscape fully encoded with sacred intent did not die with the pharaohs. It would find a powerful and independent echo thousands of miles away in the soaring mountains and deep jungles of the Americas. Across the Atlantic, the builders of the Americas were composing their own chapter in this global geometry. In the highlands of central Mexico, the ruins of Teotihuacan rise with a silent, mathematical certainty. Its central axis, the Street of the Dead, does not point to true north. Instead, it is offset by precisely 15.5 degrees east of north. This is not an error in construction. This precise orientation is replicated at other major Mesoamerican sites, a shared architectural signature across the region. Archaeoastronomers have determined this alignment likely targeted the setting of the Pleiades star cluster, a group of stars deeply woven into Mesoamerican cosmology and agricultural calendars. The entire city appears to be a massive terrestrial model of the solar system, with the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon representing celestial bodies, and the Ciudadela complex perhaps mirroring the Sun's path. This was a city built as a clock, a calendar, and a cosmic diagram in stone. Venture south into the Yucatan Peninsula, and the Mayan world reveals an even more intricate celestial code. At Chichen Itza, the Great Pyramid of El Castillo is a masterpiece of astronomical engineering. During the equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow along the northern staircase that perfectly mimics the body of a serpent descending to join its stone head at the base. This phenomenon connects the building directly to Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity, tying the movement of the heavens to myth and power. At Uxmal, the governor's palace is aligned to the southernmost extreme rising point of Venus, the planet of war and renewal in Mayan belief. Each city, while unique, operated within a shared framework of sacred astronomy and precise orientation. But here, the pattern takes a truly staggering leap. When researchers plot the distance from the Great Pyramid of Giza to the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan, they find it is not a random number. It appears to be an exact fraction of the Earth's polar circumference, specifically 1/26th of the total distance around the globe along a meridian line. This kind of precise geodetic relationship is the core of the controversy. It implies that the architects of Teotihuacan did not just understand their local stars, but possessed a knowledge of the Earth's total size and their exact position upon it, and that this knowledge was somehow congruent with that of the pyramid builders in Egypt. This presents a monumental historical puzzle. Conventional scholarship holds no evidence for direct pre-Columbian contact between these civilizations. So how could such a specific mathematical relationship exist? The theory offers two profound possibilities. The first is the unthinkable, that there was indeed some form of transoceanic contact or a common ancestral civilization that seeded this knowledge across the world, a narrative that challenges established timelines. The second possibility is perhaps more subtle but equally revolutionary. It suggests a common source of knowledge not through travel but through revelation. This could point to a shared human experience of sacred geometry, a kind of innate or discovered understanding of the mathematical principles underlying creation, which different cultures then expressed independently through their monuments. This idea finds support in the eerie parallels of shared mythologies. The serpent deity appears in Egypt as the Urias, in Mesoamerica as Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl. Pyramid structures emerge independently on multiple continents, stories of great floods and lost worlds are nearly universal. Could these be cultural echoes of a single primordial science, a way of seeing the world that encoded number, myth, and star into a unified system for honoring the cosmos? This connection does not demand ships crossing the Atlantic, but rather a shared mental continent, a collective human intuition about the sacred shape of reality, built into the world's most enduring structures. The night sky was the first and greatest map for every ancient civilization. While we see a scattering of stars, they saw a grand, predictable architecture, a celestial blueprint that could be brought down to Earth. This profound principle, often called as above, so below, is the key that unlocks the potential for a global geometry. It suggests that the pattern on the ground was not an arbitrary network, but a deliberate reflection of the heavens above, a way to anchor cosmic order into the very landscape. To understand this, we must appreciate just how deeply these cultures lived by the sky. They were not casual stargazers, they were meticulous astronomers. They tracked the sun's yearly journey, marking the solstices and equinoxes to define their calendars and agricultural cycles. They followed the complex, looping dances of planets like Venus and Mars, attributing to them divine power and weaving their movements into myth. They charted the fixed stars, watching constellations rise and set with seasonal precision. This knowledge was not abstract science, it was sacred cosmology, the very framework of their reality. It provided a universal language, a set of reference points that any culture, anywhere on the planet, could observe and agree upon. The constellation of Orion offers a compelling example. Its three distinctive belt stars appear in myths from the deserts of Egypt to the plains of North America. In Egypt, a strong scholarly argument exists that the three main pyramids of Giza are arranged on the ground in a pattern that mirrors the three stars of Orion's belt. This is not a perfect one-to-one match, but the correlation in their relative positions and alignment is striking enough to suggest intentional symbolism. The Egyptians saw Orion as the celestial form of Osiris, the god of rebirth and the afterlife. By duplicating this constellation in stone on the west bank of the Nile, the land of the setting sun and the dead, they were creating a permanent gateway for the pharaoh's soul to ascend and join the eternal cycle in the stars. This is as above, so below in its purest form, turning a burial ground into a mirror of the divine. Another powerful celestial template was the Milky Way. Cultures across the globe saw this luminous band not as distant stars, but as a great river, a path of souls, or a cosmic serpent in the sky. In Egypt, it was visualized as the heavenly counterpart to the Nile. In Mesoamerica, the Maya called it the world tree, or the white road of the gods. It is fascinating to consider that many of the world's most sacred rivers, like the Nile, the Ganges, or even the ceremonial avenues within ancient cities, might have been consciously aligned or conceptually linked to this celestial river. By building their temples and cities along these terrestrial reflections, they were aligning their world with the grandest pathway in the heavens. This astronomical perspective solves a major puzzle of the global geometry theory. It provides a plausible mechanism for how disparate cultures with no direct contact could build in harmoniously aligned locations. They did not need to share a single architect or a fleet of ships. They simply needed to share the same sky and the same human impulse to connect their earthly home to the cosmos. If multiple cultures independently decided to ground the same celestial pattern, like anchoring the points of a significant constellation or marking the path of the Milky Way, their sacred sites would naturally fall into a coordinated global arrangement. The sky was the shared blueprint, and the Earth became the construction site. This transforms the map from a potential energy grid into a star chart written in stone and river, a planet-sized act of cosmic homage. But if the sky provided the template, what was the ultimate purpose of inscribing it so permanently and at such a staggering scale? These celestial patterns find their earthly expression in a silent, universal language, the language of sacred geometry. This is far more than simple alignment. It is the deliberate use of specific shapes and mathematical ratios believed to hold intrinsic creative or spiritual power. Across continents and millennia, the same fundamental forms appear again and again. The circle representing unity, the heavens and eternity. The square symbolizing the earth, stability, and the four cardinal directions. The triangle, a shape of aspiration, trinities, and dynamic force. More complex patterns like the pentagram and the intricate, overlapping circles of the flower of life emerge in temple carvings, ceremonial art, and the very layouts of sacred cities. Their widespread, independent use points toward something profound, a shared human intuition about a fundamental order underlying all of creation. It suggests different cultures were tapping into the same deep well of geometric truth, seeing these forms as the building blocks of reality itself. When we apply this lens to megalithic mapping, the theory deepens dramatically. It proposes that these sacred shapes are not just carved into stone or painted on walls, they are written across the planet's surface at a colossal scale. The vertices of a perfect pentagram, for instance, might not be drawn on parchment, but marked by the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, the Temple of Solomon, a sacred site in Tibet, and an ancient city in Peru. The idea is that the locations of the world's most revered monuments form the points of these perfect geometric figures when connected by great circle lines. This transforms the concept from a network of alignments into a deliberate act of planetary architecture. It implies the Earth itself was not just inhabited, but intentionally designed or modified according to a divine geometric blueprint. The landscape becomes a living mandala, a three-dimensional expression of cosmic harmony. This perspective answers the why behind the staggering effort of global placement. It wasn't merely for navigation or calendar keeping. It was a spiritual and cosmological imperative, a way to tune the entire world to the harmonic frequencies of the universe, to make the planet itself a temple in perfect geometric accord with the source of creation. This elegant vision of a world designed by sacred geometry faces a formidable challenge from the world of academic archaeology. To engage honestly with this mystery, we must step into the arena of its fiercest critics. The field of mainstream archaeology, with its rigorous methods and demand for material evidence, largely categorizes theories of a global geometry as pseudo-archaeology. This is not a casual dismissal, but a specific critique of methodology. Experts point to several fundamental flaws. The first is the statistical argument. With thousands of ancient sites scattered across the globe, drawing lines between them is statistically almost guaranteed to produce some seemingly perfect alignments and geometric shapes purely by chance. It is like connecting random dots on a page. You can always find a pattern if you look hard enough and are selective about which dots you use. This leads directly to the second major criticism, confirmation bias. Researchers may unconsciously favor measurements that fit their proposed pattern while ignoring the many more sites and measurements that do not align, creating a compelling but ultimately misleading picture. Archaeologists like Flint Dibble emphasize that real history is messy, built on pottery shards, tool fragments, settlement layers, and textual evidence, not just lines on a map. The material record, they argue, shows no evidence of a single global civilization or even sustained contact between these distant cultures at the times these monuments were built. There are no shared artifacts, no linguistic ties, no archaeological strata in Egypt containing Mayan pottery, or in Peru containing Celtic coins. Without this concrete proof, the global geometry remains an intriguing mathematical coincidence, not a historical fact. This scholarly pushback is not meant to stifle wonder, but to ground it in a disciplined search for truth. It reminds us that our fascination with the past must be tempered by rigorous scrutiny. We must ask ourselves, are we seeing a pattern the ancients intended, or are we projecting our own desire for a lost, unified world onto the scattered fragments of history? This intellectual honesty is crucial. It transforms the theory from a fringe belief into a genuine historical puzzle, one that demands better evidence and more precise questions. The controversy itself is a vital part of the story, highlighting the tension between our longing for cosmic connection and the meticulous, often earthbound, work of uncovering what actually happened. Embracing this tension does not mean abandoning the mystery. It means pursuing it with clearer eyes. If the grand design was not a literal historical blueprint, then what powerful human impulse could have driven so many cultures to build in ways that seem to whisper the same geometric secrets? Perhaps the most grounded explanation for a global pattern is a profoundly practical one. What if these sites were not temples or tombs first, but tools? The theory of a prehistoric navigation and surveying system offers a compelling answer. Imagine a world without satellites, without detailed paper maps, where knowledge of the Earth's vastness was passed down through oral tradition and etched into the landscape itself. In such a world, a network of permanent, unmistakable landmarks would be priceless. A massive pyramid visible for miles or a towering stone circle on a high plain could serve as a geodetic marker. Geodetic simply means relating to the measurement of the Earth. These monuments, placed with celestial precision, would provide fixed reference points. A traveler or a sailor navigating coastal waters could potentially use the alignment between two such distant markers, one on the horizon behind them and one ahead, to chart a true course over long distances. This idea transforms our understanding of these places. It suggests they were dual-purpose, serving both spiritual and scientific functions within their cultures. The Great Pyramid, for example, with its perfect cardinal orientation, becomes more than a tomb. It becomes a true north benchmark on a planetary scale. Stonehenge, with its sophisticated solar and lunar alignments, could have been a calibration point for a larger system of time and space measurement. This implies a coordinated, long-term project to literally chart the planet, to understand its size and shape through direct observation and monumental construction. It points to a forgotten age of exploration and measurement that predates the voyages of Columbus or Magellan by thousands of years. The builders, in this view, were not just honoring the gods, they were engaged in a colossal act of global cartography, turning the Earth itself into a map written in stone. This practical framework naturally leads to a more mysterious question. If these points were used for navigation, what were people trying to find, or perhaps, what were they trying to connect? Beyond navigation, another purpose whispers through the stones, one that speaks to the very ground they stand upon. This is the idea that these monuments were built not to chart the Earth, but to connect with a living force within it. Proponents of this view look beyond maps and astronomy to the ancient practice of geomancy, the art of reading and interacting with the subtle energies of the land. In this framework, the global geometry is not a surveyor's grid, but a circuit diagram for a planetary energy grid. They suggest that certain points on the Earth's surface are natural nodes or vortices where these telluric energies, sometimes called ley lines, are most concentrated or accessible. These energies could be a blend of electromagnetic fields, subterranean water flows, or even more subtle forces not yet defined by modern science. The builders, according to this theory, possessed a sensitivity to these currents, a skill akin to dowsing. They would have sought out these powerful places, these intersections in the Earth's energetic web, and then constructed their megaliths directly upon them. The purpose was multifaceted and deeply integrated into their worldview. A stone circle erected on such a node might act as a capacitor, gathering and focusing this terrestrial energy to amplify spiritual ceremonies, making prayer or ritual more potent. It could serve as a transmitter, sending intentions or harmonizing frequencies across the landscape along the ley lines that connected other sites. Some speculate these energies could influence the surrounding environment, enhancing the fertility of the soil for crops or creating conditions conducive to healing and meditation. This transforms our view of a site like Stonehenge from a calendar into a kind of spiritual power plant, its massive stones acting as tuning rods for the land itself. Modern investigators in the field of Earth mysteries often report unusual phenomena at these locations, from compass needles behaving erratically and electronic devices malfunctioning to personal experiences of heightened awareness or emotional resonance. While these are largely anecdotal, some scientific studies have measured anomalous electromagnetic fields or unusual acoustic properties at ancient sites, lending a tantalizing, if controversial, layer of physical data to the claims. This perspective connects the dots of the global network in a profoundly different way. If each major monument sits on a powerful energy node, and these nodes are connected by energetic pathways, then the entire pattern becomes a living, breathing system. The Great Pyramid, the temples of Angkor, the mounds of North America, all become components in a vast, ancient technology designed to interface with the planet's own vitality. It frames our ancestors not just as astronomers or engineers, but as geomancers, practitioners of a sacred science that sought harmony between humanity and the pulsing heart of the Earth. This purpose, while elusive and difficult to prove, addresses a deep human intuition that places can hold power, that some locations simply feel different. It suggests the global geometry might be less a blueprint of the sky and more a map of the Earth's own hidden anatomy, a spiritual cartography of places where the veil between the mundane and the mystical was believed to be thin. The stones themselves endure, outlasting every empire and language that named them. This resilience points toward a third, and perhaps most haunting, purpose for the global geometry. What if the pattern is not a tool for the present, but a message for the future? This narrative, woven through countless myths and alternative histories, proposes that the megaliths are a legacy, a deliberate signal carved into the planet by a sophisticated precursor civilization that has since vanished from the world stage. We are familiar with the echoes of this story in the legend of Atlantis, described by Plato as an advanced island nation lost beneath the waves, or in the widespread myths of a great flood that reset human history. In this framework, the precise alignment of sites across continents becomes a kind of permanent signature. These monuments, built from the most durable materials available and placed according to immutable celestial and geodetic principles, would be designed to survive the collapse of their builders. They would stand as eternal markers, resistant to the erosion of history itself. The geometry then transforms from a functional system into a symbolic one, a beacon or perhaps even a warning left for a future generation intelligent enough to recognize the pattern and decipher its meaning. It suggests the builders were thinking in scales of time we can scarcely comprehend, planning for a future thousands of years beyond their own horizon. This idea fundamentally challenges the conventional linear view of human progress, which charts a steady ascent from simple hunter-gatherers to complex technological societies. Instead, it opens the door to cyclical theories of history where civilizations rise to great heights, possess advanced knowledge, and then fall due to some catastrophic event, whether environmental, cosmic, or self-inflicted. The monuments in this view are the scattered ruins of a lost golden age, all that remains of a world that once was. They are not primitive attempts at architecture, but the weathered remnants of a science we have yet to fully rediscover. This perspective reframes every megalithic site. A pyramid is no longer just a tomb but a time capsule. A stone circle is not merely a calendar, but a permanent coordinate in a planetary archive. The global grid becomes a recovery system, a map left behind to guide a future civilization back to a lost understanding of the Earth and the cosmos. It asks us to consider whether the builders, foreseeing their own demise, invested their greatest efforts not in things that would serve them in life, but in structures that would speak across the millennia, whispering, "We were here and we knew." This notion, while speculative, taps into a deep human longing and a profound question about our own legacy. What would we build if we knew our entire world was about to be wiped clean? Would we leave behind a pattern too large to ignore, a puzzle written in mountains and rivers, hoping that someone, someday, would piece it together and remember? The silent alignment of ancient stones across the globe is at the very least an invitation to ask that question. The ground beneath these ancient stones is not as permanent as it seems. Our planet is a dynamic, shifting entity, a fact that introduces a critical layer of complexity to the idea of a global geometry. The continents we see today were not always in their current positions, drifting apart over millions of years at a rate slower than the growth of a fingernail. While this continental drift is far too slow to have moved a pyramid in human timescales, other Earth changes could have been sudden and profound. Some researchers propose that catastrophic events in deep history, from massive floods to potential asteroid strikes, may have triggered what is known as a true polar wonder. This is not the periodic reversal of the magnetic poles, but a physical shift of the entire planet's outer crust relative to its axis, effectively moving the geographic poles to new locations. Imagine spinning an orange slightly so that the sticker marking its top is now on the side. The fruit itself has not turned, but its surface has reoriented. If such an event occurred, even in the distant past, it would render every celestial alignment on Earth instantly obsolete. A temple perfectly aligned to the North Star would suddenly be pointing somewhere else entirely. This possibility forces us to reconsider the map. Could the proposed global geometry we are trying to decipher today actually be a snapshot of an older Earth? A fossilized pattern from a time when the poles were in a different place or the continents were arranged slightly differently. This is not a fringe idea to dismiss the theory, but a sophisticated argument within it. Some proponents suggest that the geometry does not fit our modern globe perfectly because it was never designed for our modern globe. They argue it was laid out on a planet with a different face, perhaps before or just after a great cataclysm that reshaped the world. The widespread flood myths found in nearly every culture could be a cultural memory of such a transformative event, a reset that left the old markers in place but on a subtly altered stage. This perspective elegantly bridges a major gap between the ideal, perfect geometry and the messy, imperfect alignments we actually measure. A line that seems slightly off today might have been perfectly straight under a previous polar alignment. A site that no longer aligns with a solstice sunrise might have been perfectly calibrated millennia ago. It transforms the quest from simply connecting dots on a static map to a form of historical geology, requiring us to digitally roll back the clock to reconstruct the ancient sky and the ancient Earth as the builders knew them. This adds a breathtaking dimension to the mystery. We are not just looking for a pattern, we are attempting to recover a lost world, to see through the eyes of architects who designed for a planet that no longer exists in quite the same way. The stones then become more than monuments. They are benchmarks in a shifting landscape, fixed points that have held their ground while the world itself slowly turned beneath them. Their silent testimony asks us to consider not just who built them, but what world they were built for. These shifting theories of the past did not emerge from a vacuum. They were pieced together by a dedicated group of modern pioneers, thinkers who looked at the scattered stones and dared to see a pattern. These researchers gave structure to the mystery, transforming isolated curiosities into a field of study called megalithic mapping. One of the most influential figures in this revival was an English writer named John Michell. In the late 1960s, Michell published a groundbreaking book titled The View over Atlantis. It was a work of synthesis, weaving together ley lines, sacred geometry, and ancient myth into a compelling vision. Michell argued that prehistoric Britain was the remnant of a sophisticated, spiritually advanced culture that understood the Earth's energetic grid. He blended numerology, gematria, and landscape geometry, suggesting that the placement of stone circles and mounds was a form of high science, a way to harmonize the land with cosmic principles. His work was poetic and philosophical, less concerned with hard data than with restoring a lost worldview. It inspired a generation to look at the British countryside not as a collection of ruins, but as pages from a forgotten sacred text. While Michell painted with a broad, mystical brush, other researchers began applying precise mathematical tools. Robin Heath, for example, focused intently on the monuments of the British Isles. He conducted meticulous surveys, measuring the distances and alignments between sites like Stonehenge, the Preseli Hills in Wales where its bluestones originated, and other key locations. Heath proposed the existence of a precise prehistoric calendar and measuring system, a megalithic science encoded in the landscape. His work demonstrated that the geometry was not merely symbolic, but could be expressed in exact numbers and ratios, lending a new rigor to the field. These mathematical and mystical threads were then woven into a grand narrative for a mass audience by a controversial but undeniably influential author, Graham Hancock. Through best-selling books like Fingerprints of the Gods, Hancock popularized the idea of a lost, advanced civilization that acted as a mother culture to all ancient societies. He framed the global geometry not just as a curiosity, but as the smoking gun evidence for this forgotten chapter in human history. Hancock suggested that this precursor civilization, possibly destroyed in a cataclysm like a comet impact, left behind its knowledge in the form of these precisely placed monuments, a legacy for future generations to decode. His work, while heavily criticized by mainstream academia, brought these ideas into millions of living rooms, framing the debate in terms of a forgotten history waiting to be recovered. These individuals, among many others, built the intellectual framework we explore today. They showed that questioning the official story of the past was not mere speculation, but a pursuit with its own history, its own evidence, and its own community of inquiry. They moved the discussion from the fringes into a legitimate, if contested, conversation about human origins. Their collective effort set the stage for the next great leap in understanding, one that would move from theory and measurement into the realm of hard, visual proof. This next phase would employ the very technology that defines our modern age, allowing us to see the hidden patterns from a vantage point those ancient builders could only dream of. The pioneers of this theory worked with maps, compasses, and a deep intuition for the land. Today, we have tools that would seem like pure magic to them, allowing us to test their boldest claims with a new kind of rigor. The digital revolution has given us geographic information systems, or GIS, a powerful software that can transform our entire planet into a dynamic, layered canvas. Imagine plotting every known megalithic site, ancient temple, and sacred mountain onto a single, precise digital globe. With GIS, researchers can do exactly that, creating a database of thousands of points. The software can then calculate the exact distances between any two sites along the curve of the Earth, not just on a flat map. It can test alignments, not just to simple north, but to the rising and setting points of specific stars on specific dates thousands of years in the past, using astronomical modeling. This removes human estimation and bias from the equation, allowing for cold, hard statistical analysis. We can ask the computer to find all lines connecting 3 or more significant ancient sites, and then calculate the probability of such alignments occurring by random chance. This is the scientific method applied to the mystery, a way to separate compelling signal from mere coincidence. The results are fascinating. While many proposed alignments do fall apart under this scrutiny, others emerge with a statistical significance that is hard to ignore. Certain geometric shapes, like great circle triangles connecting major sites, appear with a frequency that suggests something more than luck. This data-driven approach represents the new frontier of megalithic mapping research, moving it from the realm of speculation into a field of computational archaeology. It offers a path to validate or refute the global geometry hypothesis not with passion but with pixels and probability. The view from above grows even clearer with satellite imagery and a technology called LiDAR. LiDAR works by firing millions of laser pulses from an aircraft toward the ground. By measuring how long it takes each pulse to bounce back, it can create a detailed, three-dimensional map of the surface, effectively digitally stripping away dense jungle canopy or layers of soil. In places like the jungles of Cambodia and Central America, LiDAR has revealed vast, hidden urban complexes, road networks, and ceremonial centers completely invisible from the ground. This technology is showing us that ancient civilizations were often far more extensive and interconnected than we ever knew, reshaping the very landscape on a massive scale. For the global geometry theory, this is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can debunk claims by showing that a proposed sacred site is actually a natural geological formation. On the other, it can uncover entirely new candidate sites, previously unknown structures that might fit perfectly into the proposed pattern, strengthening the case. This technological lens is transforming our understanding, not by telling us what to believe, but by giving us a clearer picture of what actually exists. It allows us to see the ancient world with new eyes, to measure the intentions of the past with the precision of the present. The question is no longer just about drawing lines on a map, but about what the data reveals when we let the stones speak for themselves in the language of mathematics and light. The precise alignments measured by satellites find a powerful echo in the oldest stories humanity has ever told. Across the world, separated by oceans and millennia, cultures preserved a strikingly similar memory. They spoke of a primordial time, a golden age when beings of great power walked the earth. These were not ordinary people. In Sumerian tablets, they are the Anunnaki, gods who descended from the heavens to give humanity laws, agriculture, and the knowledge of building. In the ancient Sanskrit texts of India, stories tell of the Vimanas, magnificent flying chariots piloted by celestial beings. Greek mythology credits the god Hephaestus, the divine smith, with crafting automatons and wondrous structures. And in the Americas, the feathered serpent, known as Kukulkan to the Maya and Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs, was a civilizing deity who brought writing, astronomy, and the art of architecture to the people. This global chorus of myth points to a profound and shared idea that civilization itself was a gift taught by master builders from a lost epoch. When we listen to these stories alongside the geometric evidence, a compelling possibility emerges. Could these ubiquitous myths be the cultural memory, the narrative fossil, of the very architects who designed the global pattern? The geometric grid, in this light, transforms from a mere technical blueprint into a foundational spiritual legacy. The stories suggest the knowledge was not just about measurement and alignment, but was woven into the fabric of culture, religion, and identity. The master builders were not just engineers, they were culture heroes, divine instructors who shaped how humanity saw its place in the cosmos. This narrative layer solves a critical puzzle within the theory. How could such sophisticated knowledge be disseminated and then forgotten? The myths provide an answer. It was passed down not as a textbook of geodesy, but as sacred lore. Over generations, as languages changed and empires fell, the precise technical details of spherical trigonometry or energy dynamics faded into obscurity. But the core of the story remained, the memory of a time when gods walked among men and raised impossible stones to the sky. The Great Pyramid becomes not just a geometric marker, but perhaps a testament to the teachings of Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom and measurement. Stonehenge shifts from a calendar to a monument built by the magical hand of the wizard Merlin from Arthurian legend, a later echo of that ancient archetype. These myths add a human or superhuman dimension to the cold lines on the map. They suggest the global geometry was never meant to be a secret code for the initiated alone, but a story for everyone, a tale told around campfires for thousands of years about how the world was once intentionally, divinely arranged. The loss of the technical how is understandable, but the persistence of the story why speaks volumes. It tells us that our ancestors, from the deserts of Iraq to the rainforests of Guatemala, collectively remembered being part of something far grander than themselves, a project that united heaven, earth, and the very purpose of human endeavor. This shared mythological bedrock invites us to see the stones not as isolated puzzles, but as chapters in a single, global epic that we are only now beginning to read again. A profound symbol echoes from the highest peaks to the deepest temple chambers, the axis Mundi. This is the world axis, the cosmic pillar, a sacred center point believed to pierce through the layers of reality, connecting the heavens above, the earthly realm, and the underworld below. It is not merely a location, but a spiritual concept made manifest in architecture and landscape. Across cultures, this central point takes many forms. A towering mountain like Mount Meru in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, or Mount Olympus in Greek myth, becomes the home of the gods, a literal bridge between worlds. A pyramid with its apex pointing skyward serves as a ramp for the pharaoh's soul to ascend. A great temple, like the Jewish temple in Jerusalem with its Holy of Holies, is seen as the navel of the world. Even a simple, towering tree, like Yggdrasil in Norse mythology, holds the 9 worlds in its branches and roots. This universal symbol reveals a deep human longing to find and mark the center of things, to create order from chaos by establishing a fixed point from which all meaning radiates. When we view the proposed global geometry through this lens, the entire pattern transforms. It is no longer just a network of lines or a system of navigation. It becomes a map of sacred centers, a planetary expression of the axis Mundi principle. Certain key nodes in the geometry take on a new significance. The Great Pyramid of Giza, often proposed as a primary vertex, can be seen as more than a tomb or a geodetic marker. It becomes a world navel for an ancient civilization, an artificial mountain designed to anchor the cosmic axis to a specific, powerful point on Earth. The oracle at Delphi in Greece was literally called the Omphalos, the navel of the world, marked by a sacred stone. Could its location be part of this wider, symbolic geography? Even the symbolic North Pole, the fixed point around which the stars appear to turn, functions as a celestial axis Mundi in many traditions. If these central points are connected by the great circle lines of the global geometry, then the entire system organizes the world not just physically, but spiritually. The lines become pathways between sacred centers, channels along which spiritual energy or divine influence was believed to flow, connecting the world's navels into a single, breathing organism. This interpretation beautifully aligns the geometric theory with the findings of comparative religion. It explains why these sites feel so powerful, so central to human myth. They were intentionally designed to be centers. The geometry then becomes the architectural blueprint for a sacred cosmos, imposed upon the earth to make it a living mirror of a divine, ordered reality. It speaks to a universal human quest, not for technical mastery alone, but for cosmic meaning. By building these centers and connecting them through myth, measurement, and memory, our ancestors were attempting to weave themselves and their world into the very fabric of the universe, to find their place in the grand story of creation by literally grounding its central axis in stone. The search for a planetary pattern walks a fine line between discovery and illusion. A critical eye is essential, for the very nature of this quest presents its greatest challenge, the problem of selective data. Consider the sheer number of ancient sites across our world, tens of thousands of mounds, temples, and standing stones. With so many points scattered across the globe, drawing lines between them is statistically almost guaranteed to produce some seemingly perfect alignments and geometric shapes purely by chance. It is a mathematical certainty akin to finding faces in clouds or constellations in random star fields. Our brains are wired to seek order, to connect dots and create meaning from noise. This innate tendency makes the researcher's methodology paramount. The pitfall, often called cherry-picking, occurs when one selectively chooses only those sites that beautifully fit a proposed pattern while overlooking the many more that do not align. This creates a compelling but potentially misleading picture, a persuasive map built on carefully chosen evidence. The definition of what constitutes a significant site can itself become subjective, expanding or contracting to serve the needs of the theory. One must ask, are we tracing the lines the ancients drew, or are we drawing our own lines and then finding the ancients conveniently waiting at the intersections? This is not an accusation of bad faith, but a recognition of a powerful cognitive bias that anyone, enthusiast or skeptic, must consciously guard against. To move beyond this, the field requires robust, transparent methodologies. Imagine a standardized test, one that could be applied to any proposed global pattern. Researchers could establish a strict, predefined list of major sacred sites based on clear archaeological consensus, not later additions. They could then use computer modeling to calculate all possible alignments between these sites and compare the results to a randomized control group, a computer-generated set of the same number of points scattered randomly across the continents. If the pattern found among the real ancient sites shows a statistically significant difference from the random noise, the signal grows stronger. This kind of rigorous, repeatable analysis is the necessary check on wonder, a framework that ensures the quest is guided by intellectual honesty as much as by awe. It transforms the discussion from a debate about beliefs into a collaborative investigation of measurable evidence. Embracing this scrutiny does not diminish the mystery, it refines it. It asks us to hold our most exciting conclusions lightly, to continually test them against the hard reality of the map and the impartial laws of probability. For if a true pattern exists, it must be strong enough to withstand this very process, emerging not just from our desire to see it, but from the silent, enduring testimony of the stones themselves. The ultimate test for any pattern is prediction. If the geometry is real, it should be able to tell us where to look. The most thrilling future direction for this research lies in the potential for discovery guided by the map itself. Imagine a researcher studying the proposed Great Circle Triangle connecting Giza, Stonehenge, and the Great Zimbabwe ruins notices a mathematical anomaly. A specific angle or distance ratio suggests another point should exist to complete a perfect pentagon. This coordinate, when plotted, falls not in an empty ocean, but in a remote, densely forested region of, say, the Amazon basin or the Siberian taiga. This would not be a random guess but a precise geodetic prediction. An expedition armed with satellite imagery and LiDAR technology surveys that exact location. And there, beneath the canopy, they find the overgrown foundations of a massive, previously unknown ceremonial plaza or a series of aligned megaliths. Such a discovery would transform the entire field. It would shift the global geometry from an intriguing retrospective observation to a predictive science, offering a powerful new tool for archaeologists. It would suggest we are not just interpreting a faded blueprint, but actively learning to read it well enough to find missing pages. Beyond new sites, advances in our tools promise deeper understanding. More sophisticated archaeoastronomical software can model the night sky with exquisite precision for any date and any location on Earth. We could test not just for solstice alignments, but for the exact rising of specific stars on historically significant dates, perhaps linked to foundation myths. Geophysics offers another frontier. Instruments that measure subtle variations in the Earth's magnetic field, electrical conductivity, or even acoustic resonance could be deployed at known nodes in the proposed grid. If consistent, measurable anomalies are found at these points, distinct from the surrounding landscape, it would provide a physical, repeatable dataset suggesting these places are genuinely different, lending credence to the idea of telluric energy or selected power places. This moves the conversation from myth and measurement into the realm of hard science, but the implications might reach far beyond rewriting history books. If our ancestors did see the Earth as an interconnected, living system and designed their world to honor that, what wisdom does that hold for us today? In an age of environmental fragmentation, understanding this ancient, holistic view of the planet could inspire new approaches to sustainable land use. It encourages us to see landscapes not as isolated resources to be exploited, but as parts of a greater, delicate whole. Perhaps these alignments marked migratory paths of animals or the flow of ancient waterways, integrating human settlement with natural rhythms. This perspective fosters a consciousness of connection, reminding us that we are part of a vast, intricate web, a concept both ancient and urgently modern. Ultimately, this search is about more than stones and stars. It is about the human story itself. Each new discovery, each validated alignment, each predictive success has the potential to reshape our identity. It asks us to consider that our past might be far longer, more interconnected, and more intellectually profound than we ever dared to believe. The journey does not end with a final answer, but opens into an ongoing adventure of collective rediscovery. The map is not yet complete, and the next coordinate, the next piece of the pattern, is still out there, waiting beneath the soil or the forest floor for the curious to find it. Proof of a global geometry would not simply add a footnote to history. It would demand we rewrite the entire book. Our accepted timeline of human progress, a steady climb from scattered hunter-gatherers to connected civilizations, would fracture under the weight of such evidence. This single idea dismantles the foundational assumption that ancient cultures developed in isolation, separated by vast, uncrossable oceans. Instead, it suggests a world woven together by threads of knowledge long before the age of sail. The implications are staggering, pointing to intercontinental contact and a sophisticated level of scientific collaboration occurring not hundreds, but potentially thousands of years earlier than any conventional model allows. We would have to confront the possibility of a prehistoric network, a silent dialogue conducted not in words but in aligned stone and shared celestial observation across the globe. This radically alters the portrait of our ancestors. The standard narrative often depicts early societies as primitive communities, slowly and independently stumbling toward invention, focused solely on survival. The geometry theory paints a profoundly different picture. It hints at a potential golden age, not of technology as we define it with engines and electronics, but of a sacred geodetic science. Imagine a period where diverse cultures, perhaps across vast distances, participated in a unified project to measure and harmonize the planet itself. Their monument building was not a local display of power, but a coordinated act of global architecture, a collective effort to tune the Earth to cosmic principles. This suggests a depth of purpose and a breadth of vision that redefines what we mean by advanced civilization. It was an advancement of the mind and spirit, encoded into the landscape. Such a vision makes the silence that followed even more poignant. If this golden age existed, its disappearance points to a profound collapse, a rupture so severe it plunged humanity into a kind of collective amnesia. The knowledge of how to read the Earth's hidden patterns, the meaning behind the precise placements, faded into myth and legend. The great stones remained, but their instruction manual was lost. This shifts our understanding of history from a simple, linear ascent to a story of cycles. It introduces the powerful idea of rise and fall, of peaks of unified understanding followed by valleys of fragmentation and forgetting. Our current technological age, then, might not be the first peak, but perhaps a later one climbing a different slope of the same mountain. This cyclical view is transformative for how we see our own place in time. It humbles the modern ego, suggesting we are not the first to gaze at the stars and seek meaning, nor the first to attempt a grand project on a planetary scale. It also carries a quiet warning within its wonder. If a civilization capable of such coordination could vanish, leaving only cryptic stones as its legacy, what does that say about the permanence of our own achievements? Yet, more than a warning, it offers a profound sense of connection. It proposes that the drive to find order, to connect with the cosmos, and to leave a lasting mark is not a modern impulse, but a deeply ancient one, perhaps the very thread that ties the human story together across the millennia. We are not separate from those who came before. We are engaged in the same great conversation, slowly rediscovering a language we once all spoke. The stones are not ruins, they are the first pages of a story we are still learning how to read. That silent conversation across time offers more than just a new history, it offers a new way of seeing our present world. In an era often defined by division and borders, the possibility of a shared, ancient heritage speaks to a profound human unity. It suggests that long before nations were drawn on maps, people across the planet may have been engaged in a collective project, a testament to a common drive to understand our place in the cosmos. This perspective can be a deeply unifying thought, a reminder that our deepest connections might lie not in our recent differences, but in our most distant collaborative past. It encourages us to look beyond the fragmented political globe and see the Earth as an integrated, living whole, a lesson with urgent relevance today. Our modern environmental challenges demand a holistic view, an understanding that actions in one part of the world ripple across the entire system. The ancient builders, if they were indeed tuning a planetary grid, operated from that very principle, treating the Earth not as a collection of separate territories, but as a single, sacred entity to be harmonized. Their legacy, whether literal or symbolic, invites us to rediscover that holistic consciousness, to see ourselves as caretakers of a delicate, interconnected web. On a more personal level, this knowledge has the power to transform a simple journey. Visiting a place like Stonehenge or the pyramids shifts from being a tourist excursion to something closer to a pilgrimage. You are not just looking at an old pile of rocks, you are potentially standing on a node in a vast, mysterious tapestry, a point chosen with intention millennia ago. You can feel the wind on the Salisbury Plain or the desert heat at Giza and wonder, what did the builders feel here? What did they know that made this exact spot so significant? It connects your individual experience to a story of planetary scale, making the site feel less like a relic and more like an active participant in a continuing mystery. This leads to a quiet, personal question. Why does this theory resonate so deeply with so many people, even in the absence of definitive proof? Perhaps it touches a deeper intuition, a feeling that human potential has always been greater than our textbooks admit. It suggests a forgotten chapter where curiosity, cooperation, and a sacred relationship with nature reached a height we are only now reapproaching with our satellites and science. It speaks to a longing for meaning, for a sense that we are part of something older and wiser than the noise of our daily lives. Whether the global geometry is a precise historical map or a beautiful metaphor, its true gift might be the perspective it offers. It asks us to look up at the stars and down at the ancient stones with fresh wonder, to consider the possibility that we belong to a story far more interconnected and magnificent than we ever imagined. That shift in view, that re-enchantment of the world, might be the most valuable discovery of all. The elegance of a global geometry is undeniably compelling, yet its foundations are challenged by equally powerful counter-arguments. To engage honestly with this mystery, we must listen carefully to the strongest voices of skepticism, which raise critical questions about evidence and interpretation. The most significant challenge is the profound lack of archaeological proof for any direct contact or shared civilization. Excavations at Giza reveal no artifacts from the Americas, and Mayan ruins yield no Egyptian relics. The material record, the bedrock of archaeology, shows cultures developing distinctly with unique art, writing, and technologies. Without this tangible evidence of connection, the theory remains in the realm of mathematical coincidence rather than historical fact. This leads directly to the second major point, the statistical inevitability of alignments. With thousands of ancient sites scattered across the globe, drawing lines between them is bound to produce some seemingly perfect shapes purely by chance. It is a simple law of probability, akin to finding familiar patterns in random star fields. Critics argue that by selecting only the sites that fit the pattern and ignoring the many that do not, one can construct a convincing but ultimately illusory map. Furthermore, there is the issue of anachronism, of attributing modern knowledge and motives to ancient peoples. The idea that prehistoric cultures possessed a sophisticated understanding of spherical geometry and global geography projects our contemporary scientific mindset onto societies whose worldviews were fundamentally different, rooted in myth, local ecology, and celestial observation rather than precise geodetic calculation. Finally, and perhaps most subtly, is the danger of projecting our own modern desires onto the past. In a fragmented world, the vision of an ancient, unified human project is deeply appealing. It speaks to a longing for lost harmony and shared purpose. Skeptics caution that this longing can lead us to see connections where none exist, to weave a beautiful story from threads of coincidence because we wish it to be true. Engaging with these counter-arguments does not diminish the wonder, it deepens the conversation. It demands a more rigorous and nuanced approach, reminding us that the most fascinating historical puzzles are those that withstand the hardest questions. Wrestling with this strong opposition is not the end of the journey, but an essential step toward a more mature and thoughtful understanding of our shared, and still mysterious, human story. The stones have not yet yielded their final secret, and perhaps they never will. Our journey across this landscape of ancient alignments and celestial echoes ends not with a definitive answer, but with a more profound gift, a deeper set of questions. The theory of a global geometry, of a megalithic map written across the Earth, exists in that fascinating borderland between evidence and enigma. It is a hypothesis that challenges the edges of our understanding, compelling us to look again at the world our ancestors left behind. Its greatest value may not be in proving a forgotten civilization, but in how it reshapes our curiosity. It asks us to reconsider the limits of historical knowledge, to wonder if our timeline of human progress is complete, or if it contains silent gaps waiting to be filled. This perspective honors the ingenuity of those who came before, not as primitive people, but as potential masters of a sacred science, individuals who sought a profound harmony with their world. They may have been building more than monuments, they were perhaps engaging in a dialogue with the cosmos itself, using stone and alignment as their language. Whether these connections form a deliberate map, a warning message for the future, or simply a magnificent series of coincidences woven by time and chance, the effect is the same. These ancient places continue to hold a powerful resonance. They whisper of a time when humanity's relationship with the planet was viewed through a lens of interconnection, a sacred bond written in geometry and myth. That whisper is an enduring invitation. It calls us to keep looking with both wonder and rigor, to measure with new technologies, and to wonder with open minds. The story is not over. It is simply waiting for the next chapter to be written, perhaps by you. If this exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity, we would love to hear your perspective. Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to join us as we continue delving into the deepest mysteries of our shared past.